Okay, we're here. Dan, how's it going?
Really good, mate.
That's good.
So the last time I saw you was in Barcelona.
Yeah, in Barcelona, and it's a lot's happened since now and then.
Yep.
A lot of exciting things.
Yep.
So I guess I want to first start by saying, welcome back to the Foil Project, everyone. We've been gone a while, but hopefully we can kickstart it back again, and this is going to be a great episode to start with. We've got Dan Jungling from Code Foils over here, and he's just going to run us through his entire foiling experience, and we're especially interested about the recent M2O race and everything over in Maui.
So I'm going to kick it off, mate, and I've got to give you one of these, which is the new Code Foils Sun Tee.
Yes.
So the Sun Tees are coming out real soon. Just a little bit of a plug, but yeah, I think you can
I'll take one of those.
Add it to your collection
Perfect.
to go along with the West Oz Foil Club one and
All
the
the
Australian
other
Foil Club one and whatever. They seem to be a great souvenir wherever you go too. I think that was one of the cool things when you're away, like people are kind of trading them, and yeah, it's nice.
Maybe the best way to start down is, why don't you just let us know how you got into foiling?
Through my wife, Ange. Well, with the first, I got into it, I can't even remember how long ago, probably 3.5 years ago. And I was a sup paddler before that, downwinding. And before that, I was a prone paddler.
Yeah.
And when I got into sup, there was obviously the connection through the shop with Marcus and the shop itself. Then they got foils in. And I remember Ange went to the Maldives. Ange is my wife. She went to the Maldives on Jimmy's trip, and I remember seeing a photo of her foiling, and I was like, okay, well, now it's time to try something new. But you could just see when she first got that lift, like there was a photo and it showed her face and how it lit up, and I remember that thinking, oh, I've got to give this a go. You know?
Wow.
So she came back with all of James's Axis gear, and then it was, probably 4 months after that I started getting into it. And like everyone, you find a discipline that you're used to, and I think I got into winging first.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the second season, the next summer, when they ran the King of the Cut, and I know Donnie came third, but I can't remember who won it. Of course, Marcus won it.
Yeah.
And I winged it that year, and then I remember Reedy said, okay, you're done with this. Reedy, obviously one of the guys around here, he's like, it's time to put a knife through that sail. and I didn't put a knife through the sail. I still enjoy wing foiling quite a lot, but then the commitment to downwind foiling started for me.
Yeah, and that's definitely where you've found your passion, you think, for the sport?
I think so, and that's always been there.
Yeah.
So when we were, prone, I remember I was prone downwinding, and obviously hands kind of slow, but you still get a lot of glide.
Yeah.
Then the sup came along, the 14-footers, and you start to go link them a little bit better, and then the 18-footers that Sonova and Marcus brought out made it just like go-karting.
Yeah.
So you go a little bit quicker and you link more bumps, and then foiling is obviously next level, So you just, I don't know, it seems to be the faster you go in the ocean, there's always something else to read.
Yeah.
And I still don't even reckon we've come to the pinnacle.
Peak.
Yeah, I reckon you could go faster.
It's a crazy thing to think about for me, actually, because I kind of came into the sport through foiling. So I missed like this whole evolution before that. You were saying there was prone and then paddling. Could you just talk us through? I didn't realize how like short a time period this has all actually happened with. So like, when did the boards first actual sup downwind paddling get good before the foil was even introduced?
Oh, well, it's probably been, I wasn't even around for the whole lot of it.
Yeah.
Marcus and those guys were around for the whole lot of it. And it's kind of like a law now, where the boys were going over to Maui and doing the Molokai on, this is James and Marcus, and they were doing the Molokai on the 18-footers. And I think that they were working for Deep then, which is the company on the East Coast. And they were, I think Marcus he says stories where he was down in the basement kind of working with Rocker and cutting boards, and then Jimmy would go out and test them, and then this was a week before the race or whatever, and then they'd do the race, and that was the Unlimiteds. And over the 6 years before I was foiling, the progression in those boards was crazy. And the last board I owned was the Sonova Mutant, which I still think is one of the best pieces of design. And I've still got my board and I won't ever get rid of it. And that was like, to me, the peak of downwind unlimited sup foiling.
Yeah.
Not sup foiling, sup paddling,
Mm-hmm.
or stand-up paddle downwinding. That thing was like a go-kart, it just made it so effortless and easy. But then at the same time that the sport got to this particular shape and this board, foiling came along and you just put those things aside and you're experiencing something completely different.
Yeah. What do you think you take from like what you learned in sup paddling and like bring that to foiling? And there's some specific things you remember thinking, oh, this is super similar. But there's some other stuff where you're like, whoa, this is completely different.
I think the difference is probably the speed in which you're linking bumps.
Yeah.
And the ocean energy it's fundamentally the same, but completely different in speed and flow. And I think it's about getting more out of doing less. Like that was the big thing with stand-up paddling, because you could gas yourself so easily, but if you could lock into things and be really efficient and sit high on the bump and read it properly, you could go 30 kilometers, quite effortlessly. Obviously now foiling, you do the same kind of thing, but everything's kind of moving a little bit quicker. Yeah, to rock up at the start now with over here in Perth, like a 7-foot board or a 6'5" board.
Yeah.
And we used to carry these 18-foot things that weighed 14 kilos in 30 knot winds, like it's a completely different thing. But fundamentally it's the same, it's reading ocean energy and finding lines that will preserve the heart rate, really.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it sounds like really similar in some ways. You're describing like staying high. You could relate that to staying high on the mast and also probably staying in the right position in the bump.
100%, yeah. And, the other thing is where you sit on it, because obviously where you're standing in this big dugout 18-footer was kind of, it's hard to you're kind of standing mid-face because your board was kind of up the face of the bump and down the bump. Whereas now when you're foiling, your position is trying to put your foil at the most efficient part of the bump. So you're kind of even standing higher and in a completely different spot on the bump than you used to.
Yeah.
I miss it and I don't miss it. That's sup paddling.
What's the things you miss?
It was a good camaraderie, and you could always, you do stay with people.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed being over in Hawaii, people just get up and they fang.
Yeah, okay.
They're gone. And I think we've got something really unique here in Perth where everyone, like some of the best downwinders are.
Yeah, you wait and you kind of enjoy it all together.
And you surf together, yeah. And sup paddling used to be like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that I miss is probably,
okay.
That, and it's something nice about being slow too.
Yeah, okay.
Being the turtle, not the hare.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know.
You can't go back to it at the same time.
And you saw the sup class, like the M2O paddleboard was on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many sups were there, but there weren't many. That was like a really prestigious thing. Jimmy obviously won it way back, like one of the last like significant ones.
Yeah. And
then now it's completely kind of just being cannibalized by foiling. Yeah. It's funny, Prone's still really big. Prone is still really big. Mm-hmm. When you watch that race the other day, there's still like a real stigma. Well, not a stigma, it's the wrong word, but prestige to do with crossing the channel on that.
It's
Prone.
almost like a marathon of foiling in some way. Oh, sorry, of paddling in some ways. Yeah.
And surfers do it, and clubbies do it, and there's a real prestige. Like Mick de Better, he did it for the 24th time.
Wow.
He was the first guy to win it, and like I met him when we were on Oahu, and he knows the boys really well. He's kind of a Queenslander through and through, but man, 24 times doing that. That's so impressive.
Yeah, it's grueling too.
Yeah, and he's got it down pat. He trains well, and he's older now, but still absolutely smashes.
Yeah,
so inspirational.
So I want to move on just a little bit. I know we've already got the Code Boys on the podcast before, so we've heard a bit about their story. Would you mind just like talking through how you ended up in the Code Foils team and the progress of what happened there?
Yeah, I come from a building manufacturing background. I've always done CAD work, and always been really interested in and really, I guess, pretty good at it. Like, not to pump myself up, but it's one thing I'm pretty good at.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can kind of understand the maths to do with that kind of stuff. And I remember, like, I'd known Marcus, we had known each other through paddling and things like that, but it got to a point where we were starting to talk about wings, and he knew that I knew software, and I kind of tried to push him in the direction of like learning the software, and I slowly realized that it was pretty hard to learn.
Yeah.
And he at the time had moved down the street from us on Burt Street, and it just kind of seemed to happen that we both knew he had a vision, but he couldn't fully realize the vision, and I could help him realize it.
Yeah.
So he suggested to the boys, I think in the background, like, he's always worked with Jimmy, and Jimmy was with Axis, and nothing really happened there until like probably a year into code, or probably 6 months or whatever. But Marcus suggested that Bongi to Ben and to James, maybe we should think about getting Dan involved. So
yeah.
I kind of came at it from filling a hole that they probably needed, but at the same time, I think, you know, we're all pretty easygoing guys, so it kind of, we've managed to find a way to gel together there.
Yeah, yeah.
And everything seems to be still moving pretty smoothly.
Awesome.
Like, we're still learning lots every day, you know. We're a smaller brand and we come up with problems, but, you know, it's just trying to find ways through that.
Do you want to just maybe go a bit more in detail, like what the software you did? What's the things that you're thinking about
when I do it?
Part of the job.
Yeah. Okay. So, I guess a lot of the flow dynamics and the foil sections and the spans and the actual like shapes of the wings are predominantly Marcus and Ben, but it's being able to bring those things into the connections and the sockets and the like how things all kind of join and interchange. That's probably where I come in. So I don't know, in a really kind of basic way, if you slice through there, that's Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this curve and this curve is probably Marcus, but all of this here, and how that all kind of blends in and creates that shape, that's probably where I come into it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to take full credit for that, because in the design process, you've got to learn how they think. You know, because Marcus has got a vision. He knows craft. He knows, and so does Ben. They've been building these things and boards and like crazy composite things. They've been involved with sailing. So, and I was all very fresh to that. You know, so I'm like, is it this? Does it need to be that thickness? You know, they're kind of guiding me a lot on all of that stuff, of which in the last 18 months I've probably learnt, and I can kind of just do it now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't really know too much about how much blend you need for stiffness and where to thicken things up, and, you know, what kind of curvature you're supposed to use in particular areas. So I was guided a lot with that. Like, you know, it's mainly like I'm the cartographer, I guess, like the person that draws the map, and they're the ones that put the map, that they're the ones that have done the exploring.
Yeah, okay, and you just fit it all together.
Yeah,
like
that's it.
Fitting the pieces of puzzle.
Exactly. So, and now it's so smooth. So, you know, the guys have got ideas for wings. It's not like, it's no secret that they're not working on new stuff all the time, but they'll kind of go and throw us a file.
Yeah.
And now I can just go away and I know exactly how they kind of think. And then, so I go away for 8 hours or whatever, and I mold it all together, and then we go back and we can kind of critique what we've done, you know?
Yeah, perfect.
And there's always ways of improving things. You know, there's some things on the designs that we're locked into. Like, we can't change our fuse too much and some of the joins too much, but, you know, we're still working on little things to improve there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is just the socket to get to the tail wing. Oh, sorry, the fuselage from the front. It's got this really interesting design.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were the one who came up with that or how that happened, because it's like super unique, I think.
Yeah, well, I reckon that was probably where I started to get a feel for how Marcus was thinking.
Yeah.
And I think I might have come up with it. I'm not going to take full credit, but
Yeah.
it was definitely informed by what he was thinking, you know, and I was like, what about something like this? So, and it's kind of an old carpentry joint as well, like a little socket that kind of fits into something. So we you know, as the locator pin, so that kind of works. And we kept that off the tail. Like it's amazing working with guys like, you know, Marcus, Ben and James, because there's nothing that's not thought about, you know, and really critiqued. Like the amount of times I threw things in the bin, redid them, you know, because you'd look it on the screen or you'd print it on the CNC and it just wouldn't be smooth enough. You know, we're like, no, we have to go back and do that again and again and again. And it was just this huge iterative process. But, yeah, like getting back to the tail, we made like a conscious decision to make it that a little bit more neutral than that socket, because we knew
shimming it.
Yeah, there's shimming, and there's people would have their own tails, and we got people in Victoria making their own tails, and they want to have a little bit of fun with that. You know, the tail is like a great thing to have fun with.
Yeah, it's a bit like shaping your own surfboard in some ways, isn't it? The tail, you can kind of...
It's easy, like, you know, block a G10 and basic knowledge of a CNC machine, and you can you know, have some fun. And that's the other thing that's really cool now, like, is that well, Marcus and I and Ben, we all kind of learnt this machine, how to cut these things, and since then we've got more CNC machines and we've got 3D printers, and like the feedback loop is so much quicker, and we're getting quicker at being able to produce things. So the next whole run of design is going to be exciting, you know, way more informed as well, you know, and exciting. For sure.
All right, that's awesome.
I don't know if I'm saying too much.
Yeah, well, we can bounce it off them if we need. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, which, I mean, like, and the other thing was, it was really interesting to know when we were in Hawaii, the different strategies around prototyping from other brands too. Yeah, it was from an observation point. You've got guys like, you know, Kane, who from, you know, Kane to Wild. Yeah. And it was quite open. He wasn't covering anything. You know, you could kind of, like, I wasn't intentionally walking up and making photographs in my mind. You know, that's not my place to do. But what I noticed was that he was a lot more like, open, out in the open. You got the other brands like Duotone and Armstrong, and they had the whole sock on the foil, walk into the water, flip the foil,
take the sock off,
take the sock off, you know, that kind of thing. So
really interesting. It's
interesting where we kind of fall. And last year we had these, and we were happy with them, and people saw them, and I don't know. I kind of compare the whole industry a little bit like F1 cars. You know, it's like you go to the track and all
you see everything.
The engineers are walking around looking at it, so that you can't help but think, you know, how can that flow on and become something else, you know.
What way would you like it to, like, how do you think it would work? Do you think it's better for people to kind of like hide it and like kind of keep it as their own, or would you like it all to be just open and everyone's just bouncing ideas? There's probably a balance between what works.
There's probably you're right. It would have to be a balance, but there's it has to float somewhere in the middle. I think how F1 does it, you know, it moves so quick that you can't patent anything. Yeah. You know, by the time you patent it, it's superseded. Like the sport compared like July last year to July this year, it's a different sport. And like what the athletes are doing, you know, and how they're riding the bumps and how they're getting to the finish line. And it's now this kind of cardio exercise, pump foil, gun it, keep your foil over 32 kilometers an hour thing. Compared to last year where it was,
ride the bumps and
you have to massage through the flat sections and the flat water paddle up at the start. You know, the whole sport's changed, so all the foils are going to change. And what is the sport going to be next year? You know, there's such wicked things to talk about.
Yeah, it's a fun, exciting thing to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You know, is it are they races in the bumps? Are they going to be races in longer distances?
I think the one crazy thing I remember is I saw Ange was doing a live stream at the end, just going around and like looking at some boards, just having a chat. It was pretty cool. I tuned in and watched it. It was really cool to see.
So we're at the finish and I thought I'd go live because then you guys can check out all the boards. All you nerds can froth out on the boards and foils at the finish line. So this is 770R.
But she pointed out all like the wing foiling boards compared to the downwind boards. Yeah, like it's without even looking at the board, you can tell if it's a wing foil or a downwind really quickly, and their like masks were just huge, and it's a completely different sport now, the two.
It is, for sure. I mean, I don't know how to say the name of the brand, Chabunga, I think it is.
Yeah.
And the things that, you know, they were playing with, or they got on the Instagram, where there's sections in titanium and they're super thin, and then they're molded into, you know, composite masts.
Yeah.
You know, that is another realm. You know, it's now probably superseded too, because that was posted 6 months ago or whatever, you know.
Yeah, who knows?
So it's exciting for sure. And then you got to kind of bring that back to reality, that there's still people that want to learn the sport and they want to paddle up and
Yeah, exactly.
just experience that first bit of froth that we all experience when you finally link 2 minutes of foiling, you know.
I think it's also great to like talk about all these exciting races and people pumping really fast, but in the end, everyone kind of wants to just get out there and have a good time and surf.
Yeah.
And I know for us in like Perth, the whole thing that makes it so good is you go out for a session in the summer where you never get to surf in the summer, and then you get to surf for like an hour instead of being up on your feet for like 5 minutes. That's the real gold, I think.
Yeah, and it was probably happening just before you went away, but I've noticed towards the end of summer here in WA, there was the short run, which is kind of like North Mole in Freo to Swanee, about, 10 Ks? It's actually 10 Ks perfectly.
Yeah.
And when you drive up to jump in, you could just see a line and 50 foilers, you know.
That's insane.
And they're just like little packs of 10 people, and they're all foiling at different abilities, like getting back to Swanee, and then everyone's chatting in the car park at Swanee.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. I still remember that. I think I was on a GT 2200 Go foil.
Yeah.
That first 2 minute link. That was epic.
It feels insane. I was actually thinking about the other day, like, what's the most memorable moment I have? And I think it was we had one really good day where we'd had weed for a bit and then it went away, and it was just perfect size bumps. I think I took the 85 mast for like the first time ever, and the 720 wing. And I just, in my head, I can still remember like doing a couple of those turns and just being like, oh man, that felt so good.
The one that sticks in my mind was, I think it was in November, and I remember we paddled out with 1130s, and like, oh, it's kind of offshore. And we all paddled up, and there was kind of like a swell running, and we got all the way to Sorrento or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I still remember looking around on the bumps going, we shouldn't be foiling right now, you know? It's so cool.
Yeah. Also, just on that point, this is more for the viewers out there. We've just had a good yarn about our best foiling experiences. So if you can, send me a DM. Just type out your best foiling experience, or if you want, like, even record it on your mic and send it in. Next podcast we do, if you get it in time, we'll talk through a couple of them and have a good chat about that. Try to bring viewers into it as well, because that's the whole froth of the foiling experience, I think. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. If you guys can send some in, we would love it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, on that as well, can we talk about the November this year? We're going to have quite a few foiling races in Perth again.
Yeah, well, it all hinges on the wonderful Indian Ocean paddlers.
Yep.
So they have what's called Race Week, November 16 to 23, and I've contacted them, and as long as you got a paddle in your hand, they are happy for us to get involved in the race. So the big race is West Coast Downwinder on the 23rd. I don't know if they limit at spots. You have to know that it's a ski race as well, so who knows? If 60 foilers want to get in, I don't know if they're going to get in, but who knows?
Yeah.
There's also, they run the Triple S series, which are Thursday night races, like 12-kilometre races. So there's 3 that happen around that time. And then I know November 16 we've got the Mandurah Duel, and a couple of those guys said that we are okay, but they haven't confirmed yet. But ideally it would be that we could get the Duel happening on the 16th, which is in Mandurah, and then on the 23rd we wrap it up with the West Coast Downwinder. And I was hoping to run, and this is Stimo, who was one of the SUP guys' old ideas, and I tried it with the virtual race. It didn't really work, but what he had was like a whiteboard on a trailer at the finish line of a run. Yeah. And it's whatever run everyone's doing the most of, and you just write down your time and your stats, and then on the day of the 23rd we could have like a bit of a fun session where we all kind of talk about who got the quickest K, who got the longest run, all those kind of things. yeah, it's still a little bit of a detach on that virtual thing from people wanting to log and, getting the thing going, I reckon.
Yeah, okay.
There's some pretty interesting little apps and stuff that people are doing, but it's another app that you got to download and blah, blah, blah. So I reckon just the old pen on a whiteboard is the way to go.
Yeah, that would be pretty fun, I think.
Yeah.
Like just pop out of the water, get to write your name on a whiteboard. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon that's the easy way.
Is that just based off last year? You tried to do the whole virtual thing online as well? How
Yeah.
did that end up?
It didn't run. Like there was a few people that got into it. Call it 8 to 10 people, but it just wasn't prominent enough, and it kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that kind of works. I'm thinking about how to do that. Maybe it's just a massive WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And everyone just kind of does screenshots of their thing, and it comes back to someone like myself that has to actually tally it,
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking of is maybe Strava.
Yeah.
Because I know like people get into Strava for their running and stuff, and it's kind of actually a pretty perfect app for downwind foiling because it does things like speed and distance. So maybe it could be easiest to set up like a group on Strava or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll look into that.
Yeah.
And definitely ask you lots of questions about it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, wait, so could you just run through those dates that we were talking about again?
So November 16 to 23.
Okay.
That's the week, and hopefully people come over, and it'd be awesome to be able to say to people, get down south, do a couple of runs down there, down around Margaret River, because there's weed-free water. Usually November's pretty good, like for weed, but it does start to grow about December, and it can really kind of ruin our foiling, as some of the guys know.
Yeah. So November's the month, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully that's okay.
Okay. So maybe the next spot we could go to is the last time we saw each other in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Should we maybe just run through what happened there and have a bit of a chat about it all?
Yeah, for sure, man. It was awesome.
So yeah, I think first of all we should say a big thanks to Xavi for having us.
Yep.
Because he was an amazing guest. Amazing host.
Yeah, and Albert and Mario.
Yeah,
and
all
the guys
the boys
over
there.
Like, a trip to remember. And it was good to see the foiling scene in Europe generally, I guess.
And it's nice to see that like foilers everywhere. It seems to be the same vibe, like super open, really ready for a chat, and everyone's just like, everyone I met was lovely, I have to say. Like, really nice.
Yeah, so you got there a few hours before me.
Yeah.
And we were staying up the coast where they usually finish their run.
Yeah.
So it was great. Xavi would pick us up every day. It was 18 Ks away from the arena where they ran Barcelona Supfest, and we would go down there pretty much every day, didn't we?
Yeah, we basically just went down to the beach and...
Yep. And that was... Unfortunately, they got a bit scunted with the wind. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be that Barcelona is an incredible downwind location. We just got a bit of a dud, but we still managed to downwind.
Yeah.
And they were really resourceful. It was great to see how you can adapt a race to make it happen.
Yeah, they were super resourceful, weren't they? That was...
Yeah, they get like what Xavi was saying, usually it's from Barcelona and then they head east to Mataro, which is where we were staying. But then that wind didn't blow. They had this kind of funky wind that was blowing almost from the south.
It was almost blowing... Well, comparative to the shore, it was basically blowing straight on shore.
Yeah.
So obviously that's about the worst conditions you can possibly downwind in if you're trying to go up and down the coast.
But it was cool for a lot of reasons because, A, they had the America's Cup training. So
that was awesome.
And then you go out into the ocean and you look back and you see all of these incredible landmarks. Yeah. Like the Sagrada Familia and stuff. So you jump in if you want to describe it, but I thought it was kind of trippy where we get to they did races over 2 days. Yeah. And the first race, they had a southeast swell, which was kind of coming towards the shore from the southwest swell, and then a southeast wind, and then the shore was kind of running west to east. Mm-hmm. And they put all of the competitors on a number of boats, and they shot out into the ocean, 10 Ks?
Yeah, it was 10 Ks. I remember we kind of looked at the weather and we were like, there's not that much chop out here. There's a bit, and the wind was predicted to drop a bit, so we kind of started heading out like bouncing through the waves. We obviously weren't going out very fast. I know that I had like my foil. We were so many people on that one boat, wasn't it? It was probably 8 or 10 people on a pretty small boat.
Yeah.
With your foil gear like everywhere. I was trying to like not cut my foot on someone's foil sitting under my leg.
That's right.
Yeah.
And on the first day, it was assembled. Can you remember if it was assembled? Because the second day, we were all assembling out there.
Yeah, first day it was assembled, wasn't it? But we
Yeah.
kept some of the... everything was in covers
Yeah.
to obviously stop you from like decapitating yourself. But
Because, yeah, we're going out into these chops, like bouncing. And I
Yeah.
still remember looking around going, seems like a real weird idea. But Zavi, every time I looked at Zavi, he was 100%
Yeah.
confident.
it was the funniest thing. Like, I think it's maybe coming from us in Australia. Like, you would never just drop yourself 10 Ks offshore. Like, you can get munched or something.
Yeah.
So me and Dan were sort of sitting there like, I'm not sure if we're that comfortable with this. Like,
Yeah.
what's happening here?
But they were all totally fine.
Yeah. So everyone was frothing. I guess my kind of hesitation probably happened around the 5K mark, where I looked back and the shore looked like really far away at that stage. And we kind of went, oh, we're going another 5?
Yeah. They just didn't stop. But
Yeah.
then they threw us all in the ocean. And the paddle ups seemed to be... I was okay with the paddle up. Got up pretty quick. But I slowly realised I was on a very small foil. And I can't remember. Out of the 10Ks, I think I was one of the ones that didn't pull out, but I paddled to the end. And I think it was the last 3Ks I paddled on my guts. So... And there wasn't many people that got there. I think there was like 3 or 4.
So from my perspective, I hadn't been foiling for like the past couple months, probably 3 months. I'd been on exchange in London of all places, so not much foiling to be done there. But so I felt like a little bit of a novice at that stage. I'd had 1 day of practice basically. And then when we got out there, the wind completely died. Like it was a glass off.
Yeah.
Like the water, there was swell rolling through, but the water was actually sheet, like glass.
And remember that the swell was running towards us.
Yeah, there was two. So there was a swell running towards you. The wind chop was going with you.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
there wasn't much.
And then it was like, get your way back to the shore. So everyone had kind of come out with probably a foil size, 2 foil sizes too low, I reckon. And then, there was, I think Greg did well, Clement did well, and foil only, I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Oh, bugger.
Yeah, he pops up every
Foil
day.
only.
Yeah.
Foil only did really well.
Yeah, he was on like Axis 1401. He was bang on. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was interesting and cool. And as you come closer to Barcelona, all that wash comes back at you as well, which made it super technical. And then the next day we had a repeat, but the swell wasn't from the southwest. It was a little bit behind us, and the wind did drop, but everyone had foil sized up. Yeah. And it was a lot more successful, that race.
Yeah, that was actually quite a fun and like technical race to be a part of. The first one, unfortunately, I kind of got like went for about 200 meters, came down. I was like, I don't even know if I can paddle up in this again. So yeah, the boat started coming around and picking everyone up, and I headed in. Probably not the bravest thing to do, but also we would have been there for hours.
I mean, most of the boats pulled out. I think, it was... I just remember thinking, I'm going to finish this damn thing. I don't know how long it's going to take. And
it was good. It was good. Sick to see you finish.
Yeah, it didn't take... It was actually okay, you know. So, but then the next day was awesome.
Yeah.
Like we had, I think it was at least 10 knots and bigger foils and running swell. So, it was totally fine.
I mean, I think the thing I'd take away from that is sometimes like the event, it doesn't have to be all like... The event's awesome and it's great to go downwinding and do these things, but kind of the beauty of it is bringing all these people together who kind of like want to do the same thing, and we ended up just hanging out, having a good chat.
Yep.
I mean, we went and got dinner after the last race.
Yeah,
that was pretty fun.
That pizza restaurant, yeah.
Yeah.
And even because we had our stand, remember? Like we had the Code stand and the Wind Paradise stand, and like everyone kind of accumulated around there, and we just talked shop. You know, we got to know Greg Closier really well from France, and I mean, everyone from all the different brands was talking and sharing ideas, and it was just unreal.
Yeah, it's just fun to get together, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, I guess, so that was the last time I saw you, and since then, how did training go for you for that point on? This was training for the M2O now.
Yeah, well, and that was, everyone's got their little battle, and mine was, first of all, getting to the start.
Yeah.
And then there's doing the race. But I've always wanted to do that race since I was on the prone. And there was a guy, Luke Hallam, shout out to Luke, who he did it twice on the prone, and I was always like, mate, I've got to get there. I've got to do it one day. So, but the training started before Barcelona.
Yep.
And I remember I got on Jimmy's training program. He's got an M2O foil course. And I find those things wicked, you know, because every day you wake up and you're accountable, and I need that, you know. So it was like, you know, you had to do two gym sets a week and 5 paddles or thereabouts. You didn't have to, but, you know, you kind of feel guilty if you don't.
Yeah.
So I started that before Barcelona. Then we had Barcelona, which was really cool. And then I just kind of progressed it. And the best thing about Jimmy's program is it starts you light. It gets you up to a point. It tapers you off if you're starting to get a bit tired, and then you push again, and, you know, your distance comes up as you're doing it. And you just got to get yourself out in as wild conditions as you can. And that was tricky because you come out of summer in Perth, so there's not much wind. You're chasing storms and stuff.
I also heard that there was a pretty hot, very still period that kind of like first couple months of this 2024.
Yeah, for sure. There was, but that was great too, because you don't know what's in the channel. So you just get the big foils and you try to downwind 25 Ks.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got 3 kids, which it's so awesome, but you know, you've got that other layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Like, there were some great opportunities to have got down south, but it didn't line up, and I couldn't get people. It was actually that I didn't want to miss kids sport and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta pick your battles and train as good as you can, I guess.
Would you mind like just telling it? I don't want to give away Jimmy's course here, but what's one exercise that you like thought that you did that you found was the most valuable when you actually got over there?
The flat water paddle ups.
Yeah,
I reckon he's got these sessions in the course that go. It's like you go into the surf zone, so you out at, you know, your local surf break, and it's effectively interval training. So you've got, you know, 6 to 8 efforts of 3 minutes on foil.
Yeah.
So riding waves, you paddle up in the flat, then you ride the wave for as long as you can, up to say 3. Well, it starts at 2 minutes, and then as the weeks go on, it goes up to 3 minutes, or as long as you can. And then you got a big chunk of rest, which is like a minute, or I can't really remember. So you program your watch in, and you nail that 8 minutes, and then you have a surf afterwards. You might do a bit of a run beforehand to warm up. So that one was cool, but the flat water, I reckon, because you don't know what the channel's going to throw at you, and knowing what happened with the boat wakes and the amount of times I had to paddle up in the start of that race, I like those flat water paddle up sessions that Jimmy does just gets your base right where it needs to be. So they're kind of, you know, again, building up the first few weeks. You paddle up off the flat, you try to pump for 45 seconds, you come down, you have 45 seconds rest, or a minute rest or whatever, and then that builds up. So I think over the 3 months I was training, I could get it up to, I could get my flat water pumping up to like 3 minutes on the bigger foils.
Wow.
So, and that cardio,
and that's with a paddle up at the start as well.
Yeah, with a paddle up. So that's on the bigger foils, like the 1300 and the 1075. But yeah, I reckon building that base is like so critical.
Yeah. Do you find that, like, did you notice your cardio fitness just getting better and better every week, or your strength or whatever it was?
Yeah, for sure. And your evening fatigue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you'd know, you had to train for that marathon and stuff.
Yeah.
You know? It's, and a lot of people go through it, but yeah, I could feel that. And the rest days were great, you know, where you just kind of let your body rebuild and you start again.
Yeah, you're kind of dreading that. Well, you're not dreading it because it's fun, it's foiling, but the next session you have to go back, you're like, oh.
For sure. And then when you go back even further, the training kind of starts, because I mean, a lot of people probably go, okay, I'm going to sign up for it now, I've got to train, but I would never have the base to be able to do that. So I remember thinking 2 years ago, like, if I want to do the M2O, I need a foil, like,
all the time,
every day. I need to go to the gym a couple of times, and it's unstructured, but then that 3 months out, I was like, okay, now it's super structured. Yeah.
That seems critical.
Yeah, so that was cool. And I would strongly suggest if people want to do something like that, sign up to Jimmy's.
Yeah, awesome.
Thing for sure.
Okay, I think I've got a little bit of writing here. This is what you posted on your Instagram the other day.
Oh, yeah?
So I thought maybe it would be good to just read through this before we talk about your race, because I reckon it's like pretty good summary and kind of shows what you took away from the experience quite well. So this is what Dan's written on his post. I've had the ambition of doing the Molokai to Oahu for 10 years. Life is awesome, but little goals often get put on the back burner. I've talked to so many people about the M2O, and as Marcus Tardrew says, getting to the start line is the hardest part. If you do get to the start line, it's a technical and dynamic crossing. As James Casey tells me, it's not a downwinder, it's an ocean crossing. The crossing was crazy and mental. The ocean changed every kilometre. 15 kilometres from the finish, I was just surfing and enjoying it. I could hear my wife Angie, Jean, Paul, Kyle and my captain Robbie Johnson from start to finish. But approaching the finish line, they were going nuts on the boat. I had tears in my eyes. Endless thanks and love to Mum, Dad, Eve and Andy in Perth with our kids, Lucy and Nikki and...
Persephone,
sorry.
Wild one.
Sorry, Persephone. Were in my mind out there inspiring me. I hope one day they can read this and pursue their passion above all else. I'll be there to help them achieve it. I reckon that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
What more could you want from an event like that?
Oh, mate, it was... I think I wrote that, like, a lot of times, too. 'Cause
Yeah.
I really, like, you know, it was more for me. You know, I had to kind of lock down in my mind what I'd gone through.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think... I mean, did it make the 2 weeks leading up to them to a little bit unpleasant for people like Ange and the others? Like, with all the foiling?
Yeah.
Because every day I woke up and I'm like, what's the forecast doing? I've got to really get my mind in gear. This is... I probably built it up. Like, there are other guys that were just, you know, like, cruising. But to me, this was a big thing, you know, doing this crossing. But I was ready once I got to that start line.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, everything needs to flow and be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, you lose something or you break something. Like I broke a couple of things
Uh-huh.
that I won't go into specifics on it because they're prototypes and you got to push the boundaries on prototypes and that's why they broke. But I was like, okay, you got to adapt. You got to use this thing. And then you kind of get to the shore and all the boats are on Molokai in the water. Everyone talks about this. Like then you got to get, you know, 80 kilos of gear and you got to somehow get that out over onto the boat. And you've still got to do the race.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So you're carrying and carting all this stuff and you're putting it on a board and you're paddling it out and you're putting it on and then, you know, then you're wet and you're sitting on the boat for an hour or so before the race starts.
Yeah.
And then they drive you out to, I think it's called Ilio Point where they start and they dump you in the water there. And like I thought when you do the M to M, that's another crossing. It'll be similar to that. But it's nothing like that channel.
No.
Like they're just they're two totally different things.
Yeah.
And the ocean just moves differently. The swells are more stretched. I'm not doubting that, you know, it could be like what the boys over in Sydney. I always think it's probably what the boys in Sydney train in, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, we don't always get clean conditions like maybe down south like that.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, for sure.
But it was new to me, and I want more of it.
Yeah. Was it just like a challenge, or how difficult did you find it? Do you think compared to a normal fall? Say you were just going to go out there and have fun like we did on our runs. Like, do you think you could do that in those conditions, or what's the difference?
I reckon you'd probably be okay.
Yeah.
But not with the boat wash. Like that, those 100 boats or whatever coming through and chopping it up. Like if I'd just paddled up and gone and got in front of that boat wash, sweet, I would have been sweet. You know, it probably would have been like one of those runs down south where Redgate did Gracetown on a bit of juice. But it just like all the dynamics of the race coming into it, and then you get like I was gassed in the first little bit, and then you got to do the 60 Ks or whatever.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So do you think that like the most hectic part of the entire race was right at the start when all the boats?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And I know they're working on that. And I wasn't too fussed. I mean, like I think Angie was videoing it and I got a great start. I got up and I was foiling and Gio, one of the boys from Puerto Rico, I heard him go down over my shoulder and I just remember looking and seeing that the ocean was getting a bit messier. And I was like, okay, I can read these. But then I remember one boat just was fanging past me on the right and it just kicked up a swell. And you know when you go through a boat wash, your foil kind of gets more lift?
Yeah.
And I was just boosted. I lost it then. and then you come down and it was like a washing machine. You couldn't paddle up.
Yeah.
I think I paddled up 3 more times in that washing machine, but every time I'd come back off. So I just had to stop, regroup, and then go again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely the most challenging bit.
So the people who did like do well in the end and were the top group of people in the race, were they kind of cutting in front of it somehow? Or
Yeah, they got.
how do you avoid that?
They
whole
got in front of
situation?
it, and they knew, that they'd done the race, and a lot of them had it in their mind. I kind of sat on the next line back because I knew I wasn't ever going to be in that front group, and I wasn't there for that. So I was like, okay, well, they're going to go. They want to race, so I'll sit in the second line and I'll go. And that was a terrible mistake. I should have just paddled as far north as I could and just got clean ocean, which is a lot of those good guys afterwards, they said they paddled up and then they cut north, found clean ocean, or they cut real far south and just got out of the wash. They were really aware of the boats.
Yeah, because that's the killer.
Yeah, whereas I was like, I'll just paddle up and see what happens, And then the washing machine started. And some people thrived in it too. I'm not saying that the wash is probably a bad thing. Like Fiona Wild was saying afterwards that, she was able to ride a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
She was just really clever in how she read the wash and got through it.
Yeah.
And she ended up coming second on a code, which
Wow.
is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, big shout out to Fiona. She killed it. Yeah, and then as the channel goes on, you've got these sections with really big swells. You've got sections where the south swell comes in.
Yeah.
We had glassy sections where there was literally no wind.
Mm-hmm.
We had sections where I remember the sky was really grey. So I couldn't really read the bumps, and Donnie will always tell the best story about where I can't see very much contrast.
Yeah. We've seen that a couple of times when it gets past dark every now
I
and
was
then. Dan
like,
goes, Ugh.
and I think I breached a couple of times. I was like, oh, here we go. So, and then I remember that the ocean changed again. There's just sections of blank, and there's sections where I just surfed.
Yeah.
And then there's that glorious section of Oahu, that run where you get past China Walls, which is really washy from a long way out, and then you just get these clean ocean swells, a little bit of wind on it. Oh, it's just so good.
How did it feel coming into the finish line?
It was good. I actually got hit by one more boat.
Oh, no.
They had this like boat area, and they were like, no boats go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And this boat just cut straight through it. So I got boosted about a kilometre out again.
Yeah.
And then I had to paddle up in this like offshore wind, which I managed to do. And then it was wicked. I kind of ended up having these ocean swells come through and managed to kind of just hook onto them off the easterly, and it's more of a north wind, but anyway, the offshore wind, and got to the finish, and it was epic.
That's wicked.
Yeah. So no, it's definitely, I mean, it's something that if anyone's got an inkling to do, it's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And the community on Hawaii, they're just amazing people, and it's the same as everywhere. It's like Barcelona. They just want to go foiling with you. They want to talk foiling with you, and it doesn't matter where you're from, you know, and who they are. Like, one of the nicest guys I think I've ever met is Eric Sturman, and he's like got big Instagram following, absolutely no ego, and just so supportive of the whole community, and they're a lot like that, That's really cool.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. It's like you, Hugh.
Oh, too kind. I don't know. What else should we talk about, Dan? I got some questions lined up if you want, but if there's anything you'd like to talk about.
I think I wanted to say a quick shout out to the girls.
Yeah.
And I want to see that side of the sport grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Angie and Crystal and Annie Starr, Fiona. There were some other girls there. Obviously, Gabriella DeBella.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing, you know, and they're shredding, and they're up there with the boys.
Yeah.
And I reckon we just need more girls in the sport. You know?
It'd be awesome to see it. Super awesome.
For sure. And then, they all had the challenge. They had the challenge, like Crystal and Ange, of doing the M2M. That was their goal, That, like, mine was the M2O, theirs was the M2M, and they smashed.
Yeah, awesome.
Because it's not an easy crossing, that one either,
Oh, can you see the other island when you start out?
Yeah, at least
you can.
At least you can see that one. But that's it gets technical because you got the crossing, and it's ocean swells, whatever, and then you come around when you hit Molokai, the that's like, you know, everyone's like, oh, that's the most amazing run you'll ever do, and you kind of like, you can't picture it, but then you get into those bumps and you're like,
Holy
that
cow.
is next level.
Yeah.
So they did that, and it was sick to watch.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And do you think that community you felt like was like a growing community, girls in sport,
Yeah.
in the foiling over there?
Those 5 are, you know, very prominent.
Mhm.
Ange and Crystal have big personalities.
Yeah.
So
sure.
but there was a lot of quiet achievers there too, you know,
Yeah.
just doing the runs, and you know, it'll happen here. It'll be like surfing.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll have it. So we just got to keep pushing it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a super good point. One thing I'd like to talk about is I remember sometime last year you were starting up Code, you were moving houses, and you and Andrew somehow managing to go downwind foiling every single day. So I want to just ask, how do you time manage and how much sleep do you get?
Donnie calls me the vampire.
Yeah.
I don't know. I seem to hold it together okay. Last year was crazy, especially with the moving house. I mean, Angie, she moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And her time management's in 5-minute increments. But I think you kind of see the world like that. You kind of like, there's no time, there's no moment wasted. And the 2 things I always prioritize are in the daylight hours is downwinding and kids.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have to work nights, I'll work nights. I'll
Okay.
have a coffee and, you know, to stay to 11. But, you know, bed by 12, up no earlier than 6. You know, and then you kind of crash I'm going to say I'll crash like every, you know, 4 or 5 days, and then I'll have a good sleep.
Yeah.
It's probably not healthy, but yeah, I think, and then, you know, everything doesn't need to be done at once. That's the other thing that I kind of try so hard to do, like with our house. Like, it needs a lot of work, but what can we do to make it comfortable so that we can still downwind? Because you can get fixated in these little passages of doing things. But the big rule was when Ange wouldn't bother me during training for M2O
Yeah.
if I locked in some time to fix the house when we got
Okay.
home. So now I've got
You've got to lock in and fix the house a bit.
Now the
Okay.
priority changes. I've got
Yeah.
to downwind less. And
Yeah, fair enough. That's some good insight.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any strategies you recommend? Because, like,
I don't know
like, what have you learnt along the way from doing that?
whatever's loudest and has the most impact, you do try to do first.
Yeah.
But then if there's little things that you can nail quickly, just get them off your desk. That's how I reckon you got to
Yeah.
work.
Okay.
You know, the little things, if especially if someone's waiting for them, just get it back to them.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible delegator. Like, the Code boys will tell you that. My mind needs to know everything at once, but I try to delegate. I think, yeah.
Okay.
I have no answers, but yeah.
Just keep doing it. And
Yeah.
you'll be-
It was
It'll be
amazing.
sweet.
Without the kids around, it's like in Hawaii, like, oh, we can do 3 downwinders a day.
Yeah.
You know? and hanging out with guys like Julian Bradley, like, you become efficient because he, you know, if you're not fast enough, he's doing up your bolts, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling that, like, people in downwinding are really good at doing this because it is quite a time-consuming
Yeah.
sport. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, even any kind of foiling or surfing, like, you're constantly having to adapt to, like, different conditions and stuff as well. It's tricky.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got to be. It's time management's
Yeah.
paramount. You know.
You can, like, because you go to the start of the week, you check the weather forecast. You're like, I'll be going then, definitely. And then
Yeah.
it comes around, it's like, I'm not going. Oh, when am I going to go now?
Yeah, yeah. The other one that I was doing when I was training a lot was
Yeah.
I could downwind to home now. So I would drive up. I'd leave my car there. When the kids were put down, I'd ride my bike up and get my car.
Yeah.
So that was always a really good one,
Okay.
and a little bit of extra time to train. You know.
Oh, you'd ride the bike back up. Oh,
yeah.
that's nice. Yeah.
So
yeah.
and then the wind would drop, so you're not pelting into the wind.
Yeah. Cool.
You know, little things.
Yeah. Little things that
Yeah.
makes a difference.
Yeah, little things that add up, I reckon.
Yeah. One thing I actually wanted to talk about, I don't know if we've chatted about this before, is how was Switzerland when you went over there? Because that was after we were in Barcelona.
Yep. I got there on I missed the early flight because Xavi slept in.
Ah,
No offense to you, Xavi. Like, he had so much on his plate.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
probably
yeah.
had too much to burden him with. So I do not blame him at all. And it all worked out. He managed to shoot in, get my board. I got on the plane and everything. But
yeah.
Switzerland is crazy. It's an amazing place, and they make the best of conditions that anywhere else in the world you'd be like, boring. Like they just froth on flat water pumping, dock starting, wake thieving. Like their wakeboarding scene is huge. So there's all of these like subgenres of foiling that you can see would just spread throughout every lake area.
Yeah.
And I got to do a downwinder with Jonas Hiller and Nils Mango. I know that's his Instagram.
Yeah.
Apologies for forgetting his name right now, but they took me for a downwinder on one of their lakes, 30 k's of fetch, and it was like, I don't know, 10 to 15 knots, but it was still an epic experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that place is cool. Like, anywhere you go, you can bring a foil.
Yeah, it's true. You can, as long as there's a body of water.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. So no, that was really, really beautiful. Like, and a funny place to be foiling for sure. And they got so much daylight.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Especially at that time of year, right?
Yeah, they can foil till 10 o'clock at night.
That's the thing I've struggled with coming back here. It gets dark at 5 p.m. You're like, oh my God.
I know, we're going to finish this and it'll be pitch black.
Yeah, that's crazy actually. Okay. Well, we're almost at an hour. I think we've chatted about a lot of things. So
It feels like we've been chatting for a lot longer.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe I just talk too quick.
I think I don't know. I thought it was going to be less, to be honest. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay. Yeah, if there's any last words you'd like to say, otherwise we'll...
Just, I don't know. You just keep looking forward to everything. Like, I don't know. You come back. I've come back and Hawaii's over and August is about to come and we're going to get sea breezes and I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's a super fun sport to be in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
My brain has been ticking so hard the past 6 months about coming back and starting up again. So
yeah, well, like maybe I'll finish with a question. Like, what is the plan now? Because you're not going to study, you're going to foil.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, I'm like now my last semester of my undergraduate studies. I study physics at UWA, which is my local university. But next year I'm taking a gap year. Don't want to say anything too big right now, but hopefully have some plans. And hopefully the foil project can become a bit bigger next year than what it has been with a bit more time on our hands. So we'll see how everything goes.
Yeah, and there's got to be some races.
Yeah, there's going to be
and
some
big
races.
adventures.
Yeah, big adventures. Yeah, we're planning some big things. And it's exciting. It's going to be really fun.
No, awesome.
So, and I'm sure Dan will be around for lots of it as well.
I'll have to interview you after some of these things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. Well, thanks for coming on, Dan. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. No, I appreciate what you do here. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so good, yeah.
Awesome. And we'll see Ange and Crystal next week.
Yep. Lock in 3 hours for that one, mate.
Yeah, 3 hours. Oh my God. That's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I'm really excited, actually. I might just get to sit here.
Yeah, just watch them bounce off each other.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening in, guys, if you have. And if you've stayed here this long, thanks again. Have a great day.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, you.
See ya.